Welcome in. We've got this week's deep dive all on what nutrition and workouts do to affect the body. So, workouts and nutrition play different roles in our body in general. We're going to speak specifically mostly to making changes to our body, since that's what I do and what I specialize in. And that's also what most people, I think, are joining in on this group for as well. So we're going to touch on that. So essentially what we're going to cover here, and I'm going to look at my notes to my left here. Essentially what we're going to cover is workouts specifically, what they do to the body. We're going to cover, what types of workouts do what, what you should, like what parameters you should be trying to hit for your workouts, what types of workouts, etc., to really maintain a healthy, strong, lean body. Then we'll talk all about nutrition, what that does for the body, which is a lot, as I'm sure you can infer, but also specifically with how we make changes to the body with nutrition and how that affects the changes that we make. And then we'll talk about how we can utilize both to make positive changes to your body and your health. So let's dive in. All right, so first off, workouts. Essentially, with the looking at the lens of workouts versus nutrition, nutrition determines the majority of like our weight, like our body weight and our body mass. So like the calories in versus calories out thing. And then the exercise is really what shapes the body. So that specifically is more of our body composition, how much fat mass versus muscle mass that we have. So two separate things. Think of nutrition as overall weight and think of working out as your body composition. So fat loss, muscle gain, etc., or lack thereof if there isn't anything really going on with the workouts. Now, that means you can just focus on your nutrition and lose weight and lose fat dependent on what the balance of your nutrition looks like, and how sustainably you're doing it. I actually just posted on my Instagram a little bit about how carbohydrates, essentially when we cut carbs, you might see a reduction in scale weight, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a reduction of fat loss. You're actually losing water weight, because what happens is when we cut carbohydrates, our body utilizes its stored glycogen sources for energy. So those stored glycogen sources have, I believe it's 3 water molecules per glycogen store that as it uses, it starts to let go of, right? So when we cut carbs, we actually, we lose water weight. That's the scale result that you see, and not necessarily fat loss, right? So the way that we manipulate nutrition and what we eat does have a role in, how we release water weight versus fat versus muscle, right? You can lose scale weight and be losing just water weight. You can lose scale weight and just be losing muscle. You can lose scale weight and just be losing fat, or percentages of each of those. So the way that we approach nutrition is going to affect that change, but essentially the nutrition is going to help the overall picture of the scale weight. So that being said, when we do our workouts, we're looking to make changes to our body composition, right? So once again, that's your fat mass versus muscle mass. So think of it this way. The more muscle mass we have, the more metabolically fit we are. If you're joining me and you probably heard me say this, let me know if you know what I'm about to say here. So essentially, the more metabolically fit you are, the more calories you burn at rest. Meaning, 2 people are sitting on the couch, they're both watching Netflix. One has a higher muscle mass percentage than the other. The person with the higher muscle mass will burn more calories just sitting there watching Netflix than the person with less. So we want to strive to be metabolically fit, which is why it's really important to, with workouts, resistance train specifically. Increase our muscle mass, which means we'll burn more calories, which means we'll burn more fat, and we'll have a better body composition ratio. So once again, that's that fat to muscle mass. That's what we talk about when we say body composition. So I'll talk a little bit about kind of what types of workouts do what to our body, but one little caveat that I want to say, a little side note, is oftentimes women come to me wanting to lose scale weight. They'll be like, I want to lose 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15 pounds, whatever that number might be. And I will look at them and I will go, you, I can already tell, are in a healthy BMI, body mass index, right? And we use that as a guideline, rough guideline, but you're already in a healthy weight for your age, your height, your gender, etc. Therefore, what we want to switch our focus to and our goal to is actually body composition. This is where I see a lot of women get really frustrated because they don't understand the difference between these two. You're not going to get frustrated because you are going to understand the difference between these two. That body fat percentage versus muscle mass, when we're manipulating that change, the scale may or may not come down. Once again, you can manipulate your fat versus muscle and the scale weight may or may not change. I've worked with my fair share of women who the scale has not even moved and their bodies look drastically different because they are working on their body composition. If you get too hung up on the scale, especially if you're already in a healthy BMI, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You cannot just track your scale weight here. You must be tracking your body fat and your muscle mass. So if you join the program, if you're in the program, you know this already, we get a specific scale to measure these things. Now we can have a whole other topic on, the accuracy of these scales. The most important thing is that we're tracking trends. Like, who cares if the number is, 24 or 23? What we care is that we went from, 28 to 23 or 24, whatever it is. We want to see the trend go a certain direction or vice versa. So if you want a link to that scale, if you're interested in tracking that, if you're joining in live, you can comment in the comment box and I can send that to you. Or you can just shoot me a private message and I'll send you the link to that if you're watching this at a later date. So we want to be metabolically fit, which the workouts are going to work that body composition. So types of workouts and how they're going to affect your body. If your goal is to build muscle and burn fat, if your goal is to burn muscle and build fat, the best thing you can do to do this, the most targeted thing to do this, is resistance training. Resistance training, that term can be used interchangeably with strength training. I tend to call it strength training. It's the same idea. You must be placing load or mass onto your body and be pushing mass against it or pulling mass against it to affect change in the muscular skeletal system. What's great about strength training is it's also going to strengthen your bones and your bone density, which is really important, especially if you're a female, especially as we age. So once again, if you want to increase your muscle mass and reduce fat, strength training is the best thing you can do for this, not hours of cardio. Now, strength training isn't necessarily for everyone. The only people I don't recommend jumping right away into strength training are people who have literally not been doing anything with their bodies for a significant period of time. Let's call it a year. And they have a lot of weight to lose. And they have no prior experience with strength training or working out regularly. The reason for this being is I like to prime the tissues and teach that client how to properly perform the movements that will eventually put under load so that their body is primed and ready to start strength training and their mind understands how these movements work. So they feel confident that once we do grab the weight, we add that resistance, they feel really good going through it. So let's say I get that type of client, they start working with me, maybe more body weight and band. That's only for a short amount of time while they learn what they need, while we prime the tissues, while we check out, make sure their mobility and their core strength is there to move forward into that next step, which is inevitably for every client that I work with, strength training, because now you already know the benefits of it, right? So that's one thing. We want to strength train. Another thing that we want to do is we do want to be training our cardiovascular system. No, you do not need to do hours of cardio, but you do need to do some cardio. It's recommended that you want to do 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic exercise. So that's like biking, walking, swimming, jogging, things like that, or 75 minutes of like more of a vigorous intensity. So if you're running, if you're doing interval training, high intensity, or like circuit training, things like that can count. So you're looking at, depending on how long you want to do that, 2 to 3 days of cardiovascular training. And then I would recommend about 2 days per week of strength training, 2 to 3. And you want to be hitting all the muscle groups in the body at least once under that resistance, under that load. So what's really important to understand that when it comes to making changes to your body, and by changes, we typically are looking at, especially for people who come to me, this isn't the only change you can make to your body, but this is the one that's most common with the people that I work with, is that we're looking for a reduction in either scale weight or fat. And then if you're typically looking for a reduction in fat, we're looking to increase muscle, because you know that the more muscle we have, the more calories we're burning at rest, which means the more fat we're burning. See where I'm going here? So this is super important. You've got to listen to this piece. The workouts are like the smallest percentage of the puzzle. And I'm gonna actually pop in the chat box right now a graph that I want you to open up on your own, since I can't share, or I at least haven't figured out how to on Facebook Lives, share screens. So I want you to go ahead and open this up on your own. This graph perfectly states how in our caloric burn, so if we're looking to burn more calories than we're ingesting, meaning that we're in a caloric deficit and losing weight and or fat. If you look at this graph, if you opened it up, you're going to see a few things. So think of on a scale of 0 to 100 if you're not opening it up right now, right? At the bottom to about 70% of our daily caloric burn is our basal metabolic rate. This means if you did absolutely nothing but just exist that day, that's how much energy it takes to just let your body run and exist. So all of its daily functions, metabolizing, hormones, menstruating, all the things, breathing, respiratory, etc. That's 70% of your caloric burn is just your BMR, is just you existing. That's the majority of where you're gonna burn your calories. The next bit from 70 to about 85%, which is a much smaller bit, right? But still substantial, is your NEAT. This is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. I'll say that one more time. Your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. What in the world does that mean? That means you just doing things. That's you parking your car, walking to the grocery store, walking around your grocery store, walking back. That's you doing your dishes. That's you running after your kids. That's like just your daily activities. So this is beyond you just sitting and doing nothing and existing for the day. This is you going out and living life. So that's another, what's the math on that? 15% there. So you had 70% just existing, 15% just doing things, right? The next bit, which is another 10%, this is the next bit, is just the energy it takes for you to burn through food. Yes, it takes calories to burn your calories. So as you eat, essentially as those processes happen and as your body is working to metabolize the food that you're eating to turn it into energy, it uses energy to make that process happen. That's another 10%. The last percent, it's 5% of your daily caloric burn is your exercise. 5%. I'm gonna say that one more time. Let me know if this was shocking for you. 5% of your entire day's caloric burn comes from exercise. So if you're expecting to just work out to make changes to your body, you're likely not going to see the results that you're looking for because it's 5%. That sounds like really crazy. Jamie says, you say that and I want to skip my workout. Don't skip your workout, because remember, the more muscle you burn, the more metabolically fit you are, which means you'll burn more calories doing the other 95% of your things that day. So don't skip your workout, but don't rely solely on your workout to make changes to your body by caloric burn alone. This is why, once again, you want to be strength training. So the work that you are putting in when you are exercising counts for something. You're building muscle. You're strengthening your heart, which is everything. Literally keeps us going every day. Our lungs are vascular system, which means our veins, our capillaries, everything that send blood to the muscles. We still want to be exercising, but you can't rely on it solely to make changes to the body, or better yet, it will make changes in the short term, but then you'll eventually hit a plateau and you'll be stuck for a while. This is why so many women come to me, group exercise junkies. Look, I was one too. I was one even in the industry for a long time till I learned all this. That's why they come to me frustrated, because they feel like, oh, it worked for a little bit and then I just been stuck, but I've been putting in the work, and I go to bar class 5 times a week, and I've been doing this for a year. Why haven't I seen results in a long time? This is why. So let's talk about how we're going to really continue to see changes in our body, and that is nutrition. Ding, 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 we need both. You need both. So that being said, just as an overall, I'm sure you already know this, but I want to remind you, nutrition provides all the essential nutrients that your body needs to fuel your body for its daily functions. The phrase, you are what you eat, is so true. Not only does this affect, your muscular growth, your tissue repair, helps you maintain your vital processes, like I talked about before. So like heart rate, digestion, muscle function. Nutrition plays a critical role in not only all of that, but also disease prevention. So the quality of foods you eat directly correlate with your body turning on or off genes that could lead to disease. The nutrition, the food you eat, the things you put in your body can literally turn on or off the markers that could lead to chronic disease. So we want to be putting good things in our body. This is going to help maintain your hormonal balance. This is going to contribute to your overall health, and you're going to feel a lot better. So essentially, nutrition on its own will affect fat loss. You could literally just do nutrition and not work out, and you'll see changes to your scale weight. If you're, like I said earlier, if you're doing nutrition the right way and you're eating the right foods, then you can positively affect fat loss specifically. What happens and where a lot of people go wrong is they do these crash diets, these fad diets. There are so many. I'm sure you can name like 3 off the top of your head. I'm not going to name names. I'm going to hold myself back from naming names. But think of anything that promises really, really quick weight loss in X amount of time. It's probably one of those fad diets. Now, there's pros and cons to all of them. I think a lot of them can teach people a little bit about food, which can be great. I think a lot of them can help people understand how to have a little bit more balance, or some of them can even help introduce healthier foods into their diet. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to think of our nutrition as always dieting. This is really, really, really unhealthy. So if we're chronically dieting, chronically trying to reduce our intake, what's happening is we're putting our body under chronic stress. Chronic stress can potentially lead to disease, illness, hormonal imbalances. The system is all interconnected. So we do not want to diet. Don't do it. Just stop. If you're thinking about doing it, don't do it, because it's doing so much more harm. those who chronically diet have a shorter lifespan than those who don't. There's been studies on this. So what do you do? Well, first off, the best thing that you can do to make positive changes to your body and your health are eat whole foods. Now, I personally am plant-based, but that is not the only way to do this. I just like it because I'm one of those weirdos that also cares about like not killing animals and things like that. That's just my personal beliefs, and I'm by no means saying that that's the only way that you can make positive changes to your health. And there's evidence to support all the sides. So whether or not you're going more plant-based or you're a carnivore, for either of those two sides of the coin, the most important thing we can do is eat more whole foods. What is a whole food? My classic phrase is, if it didn't poop or breathe at some point or grow from the ground, it's processed. Cut out all those processed foods. So if you're in the grocery store and you see this packaged food and it looks like it's marketed really healthy, flip that thing around and read the ingredients. If there's things that you can't pronounce or things that aren't natural in there, it's likely not good for you. Now that's still a processed product because you didn't pick that box up from a plant and it didn't, come out of a cow or something like that, right? So that's a processed product, but it's, moderately processed and there's some good things in there. So that's great. You can keep that in your diet. Is it necessarily ideal for fat loss and weight loss? That's a whole other story, but it's not going to have negative health impacts to you as long as you're also incorporating the majority of whole foods. So think about, you go into your grocery store, don't go in the aisles as much, stick around the aisles. So when I go in the grocery store, I hit up the produce section first, I grab all my things from there. I will hit up like the healthier area where there's like the more, woo-woo food or the gluten-free options, things like that for some of my very few packaged products that I do enjoy and I do incorporate. Then I'll head to my frozen section. I'll get frozen fruit. I'll get my frozen veg. I'll get my Ezekiel breads, my things that are made from whole, real food sources. And then I'll hit my dairy section. On occasion, I do consume eggs. I'll hit my, non-dairy milks, things like that. If you're a carnivore, you're grabbing your meats, please go for quality sources, grass-fed, pasture-raised, things like that. That's, once again, a whole other story that we don't have time for. But hit up all of those whole food sources and try and find a balance where the majority of your food are those foods. You can still go out and eat, and maybe those things aren't that same quality, but if the majority of your food is, you can enjoy those things and not have to worry about affecting your body negatively. It's the dose determines the dose determines the poison, or vice versa, right? So even water in too high of a dose is a poison to the body. So even if you think of good things, too much of a good thing can also be potentially bad as well. So it's all about that balance. So that's the first thing that you can do. The second thing that you can do, like I said, you can strength train 2 to 3 times a week and focus on your cardiovascular health. Increase your NEAT. This is going to be really important. NEAT is, I believe, 15% of your daily caloric burn. So park farther when you go to the grocery store and make yourself walk with all your bags back and forth. Spend more time cleaning your house. Give it a good vacuum and a good mopping more often. That is so great for your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Little things like this. There's been studies to show that those who fidget and pace around more burn more calories than those who sit calmly. If you notice, I'm one of those types of people. I'm talking with my hands and I'm very active here. So those people are actually a little bit more metabolically fit because they're just constantly moving and burning. Another thing that's excellent to do is at waking, doing 30 minutes of walking and getting the muscles to start to move. This can be really good signal to wake up the body and get the metabolism going. So if you are trying to increase your walking and your steps, doing this first thing in the morning can be an excellent way to accomplish this. And then lastly, most important piece of this pie is track your health markers. So if you're looking to make positive changes to your body and its composition and its aesthetic, don't just track your weight. Track your fat mass, track your muscle mass, and make sure things are going in the right direction. You want to track your fat and muscle mass no less than every 4 weeks. I would do, every 6 to 12 weeks on average. I wouldn't do it any less than 4 weeks. And if you have concerns for, if there's chronic disease that runs in your family, if you feel like your hormonal markers might be off, go get these things tested. However, I would recommend, if you haven't looked at your workouts and your nutrition first, I've seen a lot of people come to me thinking their hormones and things were off, and then they get in a solid nutrition regimen with me, they get in a solid workout regimen with me where they're prioritizing their strength training, they're getting in their steps, they're doing a little cardio, and all of the hormonal stuff tends to clean itself up because we've taken care of the things that are causing the hormonal imbalance. If you go that route, if you're working with a coach, if you know you're making positive changes and your body is going in that direction, and you're still thinking, I think something's off my hormones, then go test. Test, don't guess. So that being said, if you have any questions on anything I covered, I think this was a really juicy, really important topic. Tell me what surprised you. Let me know in the comment box what was new information, what didn't you know, and let me know kind of what you think maybe your missing piece is in this pie. And I'm really curious to know kind of what your next steps are to incorporate some of this good information into your life, into your workouts, into your nutrition. And once again, let's make positive changes to our bodies, to our healths. I love to see it, love to hear it. So I'll talk to you soon. Have a great evening, and thanks for coming.